Hello, 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 amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. How exciting that I get to interview this special woman here with us. Her name is Erika Toriz, and she is the president of Haven Neighborhood Services, CEO, and I believe she's the founder of it too, right,
Yes.
Erika?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, we have a lot to talk about here, amigas, and I think you'll find maybe some tools and gems that you can use in your nonprofits or for-profit corporations too, because apparently nonprofits are kind of like for-profit corporations, the way they're run and sometimes the way they're funded. So, amigas out there, I am so excited to hear from Erika. So, Erika, welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackie. I'm excited to be a part, and I agree to be part of your podcast so that hopefully some of the amigas can get something out of my work and hopefully it would help them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they will definitely learn more about you and your organization and what you stand for and how can someone who Latina can do so much for their community. And so for those amigas out there that don't know you, let's talk about your background. Were you born and raised here in LA or where are you from?
No, actually, I was born and raised in Mexico.
Mm.
If I tell you my story, you'll start crying, but I'm not gonna go there.
Oh, ¿por qué
I
no?
was,
We
I
love
was
we love juiciness.
I was born and raised in Mexico, in un pueblito. I always tell people in the outskirts of Mexico City.
Yes.
In the outskirts of Mexico City, I was raised by my grandmother, my uncle. My mom got pregnant when she was 21. She was back then a nanny in Mexico City. The family, wealthy family from Texas, brought her to live in Texas. She got pregnant in Mexico, came here, and while she was pregnant, in Texas, they would tell her that if she had me here, the government would take me away from her. So she was scared. She went and had me, went back to Mexico, had me in Mexico, stayed with me for 3 months, and then 3 months, and then she came back after the 3 months. So she left me with my grandmother, my uncles, and all my family in Mexico, which I always attribute all my, successes and my upbringing to them, because it took me a while to understand why my mom left me, and then she came back here. She came back to the States to make her life, and she remarried, and I stayed in Mexico. My grandmother passed away when I was 13 years old, so I ended up staying there a little longer. I didn't come back here till I was 16, 17 almost. And because I had already taken my test to go to Universidad in Mexico, and I wanted to stay there because that was my life. That's all I knew. I didn't know English, so coming here, my mom bought me a one-way ticket this time to come visit her. And so the immigration guy asked me, he's like, "You only have a one-way ticket." And I was like, well, maybe she's planning to buy me the return back.
Yeah.
I ended up so I came here, and my mom's like, "Well, why don't you just enroll in high school?" And I was like, "Well, to learn English." And I was like, "Okay." So I did. But I just kind of stayed. I was like, depressed because of my grandmother, and I was just kind of sad. And anyways, I ended up staying here. I learned English, and I ended up, this became my new home. But again, it was the most difficult thing because I didn't know the language. I didn't know my mom. I didn't know my siblings. So coming to a household where you are a stranger, you're even embarrassed to open the fridge to grab something. So it was difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you're and being a teenager. I mean, this is where, as least as girls, we're fully transitioning into womanhood. And this is a very pivotal moment in a young girl's life and having all these changes. I mean, you basically come to a foreign country not knowing the language, which a lot of immigrants, that's what happens, right? They come into a foreign country, they don't know the language, and they start building communities as a result. But as a teenager, I would find that this would be more challenging. more
Mhm.
challenging, I bet. So here you are in high school, learning the language. And so tell us a little bit more. After you graduated from high school, I would think, what was your next step?
So my next step, so my uncle, I grew up in Mexico, where I always tell people, like, I grew up very, money poor but culturally rich. My uncle, was studying at the University of Mexico, so we had books. We always read. We always had, I didn't have toys, but I had books. I had my family with the love that support that provided us. Even though there's times that we didn't even have money to eat, but for me, I look back and I was like, thank God for those things, because it's who made me. I came here and I was, still trying to find out what I wanted to do. I enrolled in community. I was undocumented for a while. I didn't get my papers until I was 22. And I didn't, I wanted to continue my school. I went to like 4 community colleges. Then I transferred to college, and I finally just ended up like, then I got my first banking job. No, my first housing. My first job was I'm 47 now.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
my first job was at a housing counseling agency. I sent my resume everywhere and anywhere, just to see who would hire me, because my mom cleaned homes.
yeah.
I have no connections. I come from like very poor family, so like my mom used to take me to clean homes with her. Um, but so I missed a little part. So when I was in community college, my aunt was cleaning homes. So I met this lady that she used to clean homes, and my aunt would always take me with her. So I met this lady, and she invited me one day. I told her about how I was struggling at my mom's house. My mom had always a lot of people, and it was just kind of difficult for me. So she invited me to come. She said, well, if you want, you can come stay here. She was a white lady, and she no kids, and she lived in the house by herself. So then she told me that Saturday morning, I picked up a trash bag, put all my clothes, and I went to her house and I knocked on her door. So I ended up staying with her and so she was my tutor. She would help me read, and every time I would come to her, she would say, Erika, you need to speak like an Anglo. You cannot have an accent. Erika, you are like been speaking too much Spanish. Erika, like, she was very tough on me, but I always say, like, at times I was crying because it was hard that, how tough she was on me. But now I say thank you for doing what you did.
Yeah. The
So
tough
anyway,
love. The tough
yeah.
love you needed.
Then
Yeah.
I found my first job at a nonprofit, randomly, and I was a housing counselor. The first thing they did is they run my credit, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna fire me right now. Like, they're not gonna like they're gonna say you don't qualify for the job. Well, I ended up staying there for 2 years. They give me I think they wanted to give me a raise, a different position, but only paying me $400 extra. And what we were doing then was we were helping people become homeowners, housing counseling. So I decided that I didn't want to, I was like, I can't even afford my apartment. I love doing what I do. I love helping my community. It's always it's ingrained in me. And So then I just decided that, because we were working with different banks, that one of the banks hired me to work with them. So Bank of America hired me, and they offered me like a much, a greater salary, more opportunities. So that's how I ended up moving into banking.
Banking. And then, okay, so when you moved into banking, were you thinking one day I'm going to come back and do nonprofit?
I've always liked the nonprofit. My heart was always my grandmother. Every time we would come visit my mom on vacation here, she would always go back to Mexico with like tons of things to give to the family. She would buy like a toallita for the señora, like a zapatitos for this, like so. She'd always so I. It's always in me to be at help. My uncle was city controller for 35 years, and in our little municipio in Mexico. So he just retired, and always giving back. We helped him build his house because he was one of those that he would never steal a penny from the people. So it's always been ingrained in me. And, I left the nonprofit almost like crying because I wanted to help, but at the same time, I wanted to make something myself. Another thing is the insecurity. The I felt insecure about my upbringing, like broken family, like So I've always kind of wanted to make it on my own and have my own money. So I went into banking because I was putting people into homes, but I couldn't even afford my own house.
Yeah.
So then, that was one of the main reasons. So my good heart, they wanted to stay in the nonprofit, but then like my own goals as a woman, they wanted to be self-sufficient and not having to depend on a man. I saw what my mom struggled. Her second husband divorced her, and my dad left me, and I didn't want that for a family.
Right. And so, I love, one of the things that I enjoy about the podcast is that I get to learn the foundation from these CEOs, these founders, and these presidents, and how that is intertwined with what they're doing today. And as you're telling me about your experience in Mexico and money, and seeing that, you're working for a bank and you're helping these customers, but at the same time it's like they're getting these loans, but I don't have a house. And so it's like there's all these polarization of emotions, if you will. So, I know that you've had such a rich history with helping community, and I know that I want us to get into talking about Haven Neighborhood Services. And so walk us through, how did that happen for you?
So, after the foreclosure crisis in 2006 and 7, people were losing their houses on foreclosure, and I saw the disadvantage that, as a banker, we were responsible for that. I felt that we should have educated the client a bit better. The products that we had, as a banker, we should have we question them, but then your supervisors, this is the product we have. So I felt highly responsible to educate the consumer and the community on products and services that being offered to them. One thing that I tried to join another nonprofit. It didn't work out, and it wasn't. And my dream was never like I'm gonna be the founder of a nonprofit. I wanted to fill in the gap. The gap, and I wanted to help those that needed help. One thing in our community, there's always the predatory practices that happened. So I saw that happening with attorneys, realtors, brokers, you name it. People open a shop and they tried to save their house, and in reality they took advantage of a lot of people. And so I wanted to help those that needed that help. We started with loan modification, but then I was at a nonprofit working with them, and I didn't like what they were doing. So at the same time I had met my husband, so I'm kind of going back a lot in my, because I haven't thought of this. This whole how I started, but I hope you're okay with like if I go back and
Oh yeah, no. Please. So here's the thing. We want truth. We want reality. We want who you are. And this is amazing. This is beautiful. Keep going.
So So after the banking crisis, I was let go of the bank, the Washington Mutual, because I made a huge mistake. And I told my supervisor, I said, listen, I said, please don't let me go. I'll cover the take my commission. Well, they didn't. They took the commission and they let me go. So they wiped me out. And so then I ended up like,
Godsend. That's a godsend, if I have to say, interject. We don't know when Washington Mutual doesn't exist anymore. So this was beautiful.
I lost my job and that day, but I had my book of business and I worked so hard. I had no support in the bank. I have no mentors. I was on my own doing everything and hustling and tried to make it and very zero to no support. So that day when he called me in the morning to his office and I said, and I said, please, I said, I can you at least let me stay until the end? Because, you leave the bank with your box and they walk you out. So I said, let me stay until the end. So he said, okay. So he let me stay till the end. I left. And then my colleagues invited me to go to dinner afterwards. So I said, I agreed. We went to dinner. I got on my car and I went to the restaurant. I had dinner with them. They said that I left. I had probably a drink or two. After that dinner, I left and I had no idea. They said that I left, that I parked in Pasadena where, it's so hard to put your ticket in, put ticket out sober, imagine drunk. So I don't remember I was in, and I don't remember anything. What I do remember driving, I was fixing my house and I was fixing my house. I was staying with my mentor. And so I went to her house and she's like, honey, are you okay? She says that I came in drunk. And I said, yeah, I'm okay. Well, she was on heavy medications. I went and grabbed her bottle of medication and I took it and I went back to my car and I drove off. So I ended up like in the U.S. County USC and the hospital overdose. Thank God I didn't kill anyone. Thank God nothing happened. But after that, I got a DUI. I had, it was forget that. I wake up and I'm like, where's my laptop? I need to get back to work. But Washington Mutual had gone bankrupt in that month. So it's crazy how everything happened. So I wake up and it's and you have no job, you have nothing, you're from scratch. So then my friends had called me. I came out after that. So I was in ICU. I don't want to miss any piece.
An accident?
Yeah, an accident.
Okay.
So I drove off with I had taken the pills and drove off. So my family went to, I think I had called an ex-boyfriend. I told him what was I going to do. He saw me. He called my family was looking for me everywhere. They found me a county. When they're wheeling me into with the ambulance, my whole head cover, only my foot was sticking out. My 6-year-old sister at that time saw my foot and she recognized my feet. And she's like, that's Erika. So they called my family in, they put them in a room. They said my family thought I was dead. I made it through. I was in ICU. I was in a coma. I woke up from the coma, and after that, they put me on a 5150. When they put me on a 5150, I was like, the doctor tells me this, and I said, I'm not a chola. Why are you giving me a number?
No, it's fear that you're going to commit suicide or harm somebody else.
Yeah. So, and they had to pump my stomach. I made it through. They said, I don't know how she made it. The only thing I have from that accident is like I had a blister. So my heel is a little cracked because of that, but that's all I have. Everything else, I came out, thank God, good from that. But what I did feel after that, my whole life changed 360. Everything that I was chasing, everything that I haven't told the story. my dreams, I think that my dreams and aspirations like finally came to like, I think God has something for you, and you have to keep going. And I think that never stop to wanting what you want. Do good. And I think that, and God gave me a second chance, and I went full force on that. Then after that accident, they sent me to Cedars-Sinai mental hospital because of my depression, and I had no idea. Unfortunately, some like people don't understand. Some of my family thought I was just loquita, right? Because you go crazy. Some of my family didn't understand mental illness. I didn't know mental illness until I ended up in the hospital. So at Cedars-Sinai Thalians, that's where I was there. And after that, I came out, and I would do my therapy, and I would, medication and stuff. But then I was at home, and then my girlfriends, and one time, after, I think 2 weeks after my accident, I was from the mental hospital. They were like, "Oh, come on, it's my birthday, let's go out." So I went out with them, and I didn't want to go out. I was all raggedy with my long hair, and no makeup, nothing. So I go there and I meet my future husband.
When you went out?
When I went out. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So, but the interesting thing is that I meet him, and then he's like, "Hey," he's like, "What?" He's like, so we start dancing. I was like, "Well, I'm not drinking," because I stopped drinking for 5 years after that. I was so scared of alcohol. I was like, I don't want to go crazy again. I don't want to. So I was just mortified. I was, they label me alcoholic, depressed, bipolar. So all of the things that you could think, you could name, is like I was, right. So I ended up just I met him that night, and this is the reason why I mentioned the hospital where I was at, because he's I'm dancing with him. He asked me, "Hey, so what do you say?" He's like, "Hey, so what are you doing?" I said, "I'm unemployed." I'm like, "What about you?" It's like, "I'm doing my fellowship at Thalians." No, I'm doing my fellowship at Cedars-Sinai, and I was so proud. I'm like, "Oh, I was hospitalized there." He's like, "Well, you were probably in another department, because I'm at the mental hospital Thalians." And I was like, "Oh, oh my God!"
That was like serendipity. That was like,
he was doing his child psychiatry fellowship, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna go through my records. Forget it." I had already given him my number, and I'm like, "Oh my God, no." So after that, like the next day, he texted me, and I was like, "Oh, this is not gonna work out." I'm like, "I am not ready. I need to like." So I responded 1 or 2 texts, and then I was like, "I'm not doing this." So we lost contact. He gave up. 7 months later, I run into him at a lounge. We have my friends and I have a little party, and I run into him. I see him, and he's standing there, and I'm like, "Oh my God, there's a psychiatrist." And I'm like, I don't want to deal with him. I'm like, "Oh my God." So my friends are like, "Come on, we need a psychiatrist in the group. Go talk to him." So I talked to him. He's like, "Hey, you never returned my text." And I'm like, "Hey," I said, "Well, you texted me." That's it. So we went out the next day. I gave him my number. I said, "But you're going to call me." So we went out the next day, and I told him what happened. I said, "Look, I was at Thalians. I was like a mental hospital. Da, da, da." He's like, "I'm a psychiatrist." I said, "What do you think? Like, I'm pass a judgment on you?" I said, "We can just be friends, so we can date." Yeah. So we dated ever since. We dated for 10 months. After 10 months, we got married, and I've been married for 14 years now.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Before we move on, I really wanted to express my gratitude for your vulnerability here. And this is what I love about this podcast, is that most amigas that come on, they're like, "I've never said this before." And I love that I can hold space for you and for all the beautiful souls out there who have gone through something very tragic and confusing for some, right? But here you are. Look what you did on the other side when this beautiful opportunity came about. And so this is beautiful. Thank you so much, Erika, for your vulnerability here with me. Really.
And I think it's important for other women, Latinas, to listen to our struggles, because people might see me now. Oh, well, she has the perfect life. No, I'm still struggling, and I went through so much. Like sexual abuse. That what happened in my accident. That everything just came that day, that I never process. We don't look for therapists. We don't look for help. We don't believe, not that we don't believe, we may not have access, but we hush everything, and we sometimes over medicate. Like, I used to drink a lot in my 20s. I used to party a lot. I said, work hard, play hard. But we suppress all of those things that we need to address, and I think it's important, because one way or another they're going to come out. And I think for me, it all came out that day where I felt like I worked so hard and I give everything, and I got backstabbed. And when you work for someone, if some people appreciate you, some people don't, and big corporations don't appreciate you, and this is what happened. So that I also brought up the when I met my husband, because again, it changed everything. I went through relationships, like, good Lord, and I had great men, but I wasn't ready. I wanted to be, I was very insecure about my upbringing. I was very like, I'm just not worthy of a person. And that's why I was working so hard, like just trying to make it on my own and trying to do something, and finding that thing that job, that position, that it was going to get me there, and when I met my husband, so I was dating him, and we, so then I was telling him about that nonprofit. I said, I'm not happy here. He's like, well, why don't you start a nonprofit? And I said, okay. And for someone that is like, I make my own money. Like, I don't want to depend on anyone. I mean, it was tough. So my husband we were dating. And then I got married, and then I started the nonprofit. I got married, and everything again changed. God sent me a great man. My husband has been very supportive for the first 7 years. He paid my employees. I don't take a salary from the nonprofit. I help him run his own business. So we work well together. And it's been starting the nonprofit because I wanted to fill that void, and starting a nonprofit without really knowing what you're doing, or how to start, or how to incorporate, or how to do anything. It's like you find a way to do things.
Right. Absolutely. So starting this nonprofit, let's talk a little bit more about Haven Neighborhood Services and what you provide, and how someone can be a part of that.
Sure. So we started with saving people's houses out of foreclosure, and but in mind that everyone was charging thousands of $1,000. We charged nothing to modify their house, zero. So we decided, but nothing in this world is free. So we decided to incorporate financial literacy, because people would come in with boxes of documents, and the envelopes were sealed, unopened. And then you ask, what's your interest rate? What's your mortgage? What type of loan do you have? How much closing costs did you pay? So trying to find out what about their loan, insurance. People knew very little, and I was very scared for them. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to educate them so that this will not happen again. We're going to give you your modification, but that doesn't mean that you're safe for the rest of your life. You need to understand what everything entails. Your mortgage, buying a house is the biggest investment in your life, and you really need to understand what you're doing. And you need to understand who is around you, what team is around you to help you do those things. So we started incorporating financial literacy, and then we noticed that people's credit was taking a toll because they stopped paying their mortgage. So we work on credit counseling and foreclosure prevention. Then we became one of the, financial literacy when nobody was giving you a penny for financial literacy. I didn't chase the dollar. I don't chase the dollar. I chase the problem. And we keep our mission intact where we have, we want to educate the consumer on anti-predatory practices, understand the basics of a budget, credit, online banking. We have a big community that are unbanked. And a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, who doesn't have a bank account? Come on. When we do our financial literacy workshops and we ask to raise their hand, whoever doesn't have a bank account, for more than half of the room to still raise their hand, we have a problem. And we have a problem that a lot of people don't realize.
Because they think the government's going to come and take your money away. that concept, putting the money underneath the mat, like, because we're scared, and the whole, like, also, I mean, I love cundinas, but it's that concept. It's like, no, it's here circulating with people that we know, but not in these institutions, because then they can come and tap it and take it away.
Exactly. But I think it's, and it's part of educating the consumer now. And educating them is, once you have a bank account, you also have to be very careful, because there's all these hackers that can come and take your money. You go swipe your credit card at the gas station, and next thing you know, like, somebody took money from your bank account. So be very aware. So educating the consumers is very important. We just became HUD approved. I have 15 staff members that work for us, and I'm just an eighth of where I want to be with Haven. It took me a long time to be recognized. Starting a nonprofit as a Latina inmigrante, to be recognized is not easy. I would attend meetings. You're like, not seen. You're there, but nobody sees you. But I think that one thing that I learned from my mom, and it's stayed in my head, is that you show with your work, not with your words. Mm-hmm. So working and getting those numbers, getting those stories from clients, and getting those results is what really, now we have I'd say over 20 community banks that support our work. But they emailed me and they're like, Erika, you haven't asked for money. We're sending you money. Erika, and I'm like, sorry. I'll tell you this interesting story. We were teaching financial literacy at a nonprofit, and I didn't know they were getting, a grant, but they didn't give us anything. So I just did it because the community was, happy to receive their workshops, and they were getting a lot of information from us. So we did that. So I met their staff. So I met a few of their staff. One of them is like, Juan, he works at Capital. Well, he worked then at that nonprofit. And I stopped seeing him for a while, and I'm like, what happened to him? So then, I'm like, whatever happened to him? I did one day, I think a year later, I get an email. Hey, Erika, this is Juan. I'm no longer at this nonprofit, but I'm now with Capital One. And then he's like, and I'm sending you $5,000. It was my first donation that I never asked anyone for money, but they came because they saw my work. So I was bawling. I'm like, oh my God, this is so meaningful. But, and then I met other people there that one of them is my, I hired them as a deputy director. I just promoted him up as my CEO. Great people, but I met him through all the work that I do, that they see me. Like, we just posted, like, I think to hire by the coordinators. But before that, everybody that knows me, like, oh, Erika, are you hiring? So I would bring him to me. So I did no hiring platforms. My hiring platform is here. I'm like, I meet you. Okay, you want to come work with me? Come work with me. And then, little by little, we start incorporating other programs. Now we do free taxes for anybody that makes under 60,000. We have some people that make, 100,000. They're like, they're charging me $2,000 to file my tax. I'm like, come, we'll do them for you. for free, no cost, and we go all over Lake County. It's our fourth year doing taxes, and I think we're at 2,800 tax returns this year. But we partner with other nonprofits. We help cities, like we work with the city of Paramount. We work with the city of Long Beach. So we city of Los Angeles, just so that we can bring resources to the community.
Oh, wow. Is there like a sliding scale or restrictions? Because I know when I was working as a legal aid attorney, this was a long time ago. Our restrictions were because we were a federal funding. We had like, okay, we can't, they have to have papers, they have to have immigration status, and then they have to have be below the federal poverty level. I mean, all these things. Do you guys have any restrictions?
I don't go by, no. I do get federal grants, like, IRS grant, but then, we don't claim those numbers for that. But nobody goes unserved here. Like, I don't care what we have to do, but we help them, because I hate to go by restrictions. For me, a client is not just a number. For me, I'm not doing this so that I can get paid. Look, I haven't taken a salary because I want to help my community. So anybody I'm telling you, the lady that came in with $100,000, like, I'm like, someone do her taxes right now, because I can't have her paid to that. I mean, making 100,000, that doesn't mean that you're rich. Like, you still, it's hard now. So
No, especially like, oh my God, with the inflation that's going on and everything is just getting more expensive. And here, the housing, I mean, yes, we had that debacle back in 2007, 8, 9, but it just doesn't let up. Like, no one can own a house now. No one can
it's
own a
very
house.
difficult. And, Jackie, we just became HUD approved, Department of Housing and Urban Development, so that we can help people buy a house, teach the first 8-hour first-time home buyer class, do the counseling piece. But who can qualify to buy a house? I mean, you buy a house in Compton, dilapidated house for like $600,000, and you still have to put in all the money to renovate it.
Oh my God. Well, I love what you guys are doing. I'm so excited for all the things that you do. And so what's next for you guys, Haven Neighborhood Services? Like, aside from all the products that you already do you have anything else that you're working on?
Yes. So right now we're working on a small dollar loan, so that we can start lending small. Our goal is to become like a small lending institution. So I have to start my loan program now to be able to do that. With the first time home buyer, we are working on down payment assistance, because I feel that the only way that can help people get into homes is the down payment. Layering down payment assistance for those families. I came as an immigrant at 27, bought my house, but I know things are different. Things are not the same. Times are not the same. I feel that we can still do it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of homes built. The people that are living in those homes, and normally people would want to downsize, it's not affordable for them. It's not feasible for them to downsize, because it is, to downsize, they're gonna have to pay like higher interest rate, like higher payments. So why would anybody do that? So this is why we're not able to put people into homes. So maybe building homes, affordable housing. So I think that with a nonprofit, I think you said something at the beginning. A lot of people think, oh, it's a nonprofit. It's like a lot of my husband's family might think that it's just a charity. It's a charity that you do. It's like feeding the homeless. No, it's
Running a business.
It's a business. You have payroll. You have health insurance. You have 401k. And one thing that I'm really work very hard to pay my team livable wages that are going to be above if they work at a corporate America, because they're not doing this for money. They're doing this because of the heart, but at the same time, they have a responsibility to their families. I mean, if my team is not able to buy a house, I want you to leave and go play a place where you're going to be able to make that money to buy a house. So I want them to understand. And a lot of, and for, some people say, well, they work at a nonprofit, they make a lot of money. Well, they work very hard. They have master's degree. They have like degrees where like if they go someplace else, they would be making the same money. Why not at a nonprofit where they're serving the community? So it's a lot. It's you have to do your taxes. You have to file on time. You have to do grants. You have to it's I think that it's more than a business, because a business generates you money. Here, you have to be chasing grants. So my next step for Haven is to start building assets for the organization, and then build a for-profit side of it, because I feel that so that we don't have to depend on grants, we don't have to be chasing grants, so that we don't have to be relying on the always charity that always having to. We want to do. I don't want to have restrictions when I help people. I don't want to be said like, okay, because of this income, you don't qualify for my program. My husband and I don't. Also, one thing that I didn't talk to you about is that everyone is asking. They always tell me like, Erika, why do you work so hard? I don't have children, Jackie. So I was at 30. I waited all my life. In my 20s, my mom's like, you make money. Why don't you just have a kid? I'll take care of them. I'm like, I don't want the same thing that happened to me to happen to my child.
Yeah.
So anyway, so at 36, I got married, but I didn't know my husband was going to be the person that was, the person for me. So I started at 36, and I found out that I couldn't have kids. And it was one of the hardest things that I had to hear, but that I have to live with. So I work very extra hard, because I know some women have kids and have jobs and do everything, and I'm like, I don't have kids, so I get to work more.
Yeah. Your job is your kid.
My nonprofit, the nonprofit is my kid. I know.
That's right. Wow, this is so fantastic, and I'm excited for all the new things that you're working on, and we're definitely going to put all the information in our show notes where they can find you guys, Haven Neighborhood Services, so that whatever potential customer can go and acquire your services. And so, amiga, before I let you go, I always ask 1 or 2 tips on how an amiga can handle her shit. What say you?
Get out there. Take care of yourself first before anything else. Address your issues with their family, with their personal. Show up nicely, tidy. Show up and don't take no for answered, but prepare yourself. It really, no one should stop you to do anything you want to do. And be patient, because sometimes we want everything today and now. And be kind to each other. I think that as Latina women, we don't support each other that much. I think we need to be more kind to each other. I think we need to be more helpful to each other. I try to do and mentor as anybody that comes through Haven, they work with us. I said, if you can find something better, go out there, because I want the best of everyone. I think that we need to be kinder with ourselves.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I love you gave us more than 1 tip. I'm so excited for that, because usually I'm like, people have a challenging time to tell you 1 and 2, and now, but you gave me so many tips, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much, amiga. I love what you're doing. Continue on, please. Our community needs you and your services. And so, amigas out there listening to this podcast, rest assured that there is beautiful souls such as Erika here who opened up her doors to help the community, knowing that there was these predators out there. And so she said, nope, not on my watch. So I'm excited. Thank you so much, Erika, for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. And good luck to you, and good luck to Haven Neighborhood Services.
Thank you so much, Jackie.